I'm very excited to bring to you our first ever Indie Filmmaker Spotlight. Today we'll be talking to two filmmakers from Australia and explore what it took for them to make their first ever short film. So, let's get into it.
Anyone who wants to make something, just go out and make it. Whether it's good or bad, you'll learn something. You might surprise yourself. Go out and do it, make it happen, and who knows what can happen as well.
Well guys, Brandt, Kakulas, Dakis, filmmakers of CORKED. First-time filmmakers, what an excellent film. To start things off, I would love to hear about going through a first ever film process without any prior experience and just navigating that challenge.
Well, I feel like the best thing that we ever did was just starting. I think that's something that a lot of people, are a bit afraid to do. There was never really like an expectation on what it would be. Things kept popping up that were exciting, challenging, and we just sort of adapted to that. And that was the fun part of it. I think that having very little budget, very little experience actually opened up a lot of doors for us because we didn't set limitations on ourselves.
We sort of started really big, so we wanted to write, for Netflix and this huge series, and then we sort of decided to narrow it down and start with a short, which is what I would recommend people do. Trying to get all the logistic things in place and sort of whatever we had to use, we tried to use and exhausted extensively everything that we had and tried to make that fit within our story. I think that's the best advice I'd give.
And that's the fun part as well. It's like trying to squeeze the lemon when there's nothing left, and trying to be resourceful and save money on everything that we possibly can. And then when you get something that's like beyond your expectations, it's like, wow, I can't believe we did that. That was awesome.
I think it's really fun. Like we had versions where like my dad, for example, was helping out and he had to keep turning the light off because we couldn't adjust the main lighting and just little things like that hopefully we never have to do again.
He was holding it like he was like beneath the shot with his finger, like trying to keep it off. So that's the fun part.
Hopefully we're never there again, but like it's such a good story. So
yeah.
I think what you guys proved is a lot of it is just doing, right? Like you have to take that first step. You have to dive into it. And only then can you truly learn what it takes to make a film. What was that holy crap moment, maybe the biggest challenge or hurdle that you guys faced where you were like, wow, we're really doing this. We're diving in the deep end.
The casting process, like once you have people, and we're really grateful for the people who are part of our film, especially the actors, like they came back on multiple days where they weren't expected from the very start. So things changed really quickly in terms of scheduling. There were nights where we were up to over 2 a.m. in the morning, on a Thursday night. And once you start to get those real people involved, I think Brandt and I looked at each other, we were like, wow, we're really doing this. You start to really almost take responsibility for things a bit more and you don't want to let them down as well. So once they become involved, you're like, okay, this has to happen now. We don't want to let anyone down. So
and having to deal with those logistics on the fly as well.
100%.
Like, because they'd be there waiting and you'd be like, well, there was actually one shoot that we did where we couldn't get the reflection gone. I think it's the scene where the cops are in the car and we've got that wide angle shot of them just both sitting on the windscreen. And we couldn't stop the reflections from coming in. We had like almost cloth that we were using to reflect the light.
My bed sheets.
Bed sheets, yeah. And it wasn't staying up. So we had to get the actors who weren't in the scene to hold it up manually with their hands. And like everyone's shoulders would start to give in by the end of the shoot. But like stuff like that is stuff you have to sort of deal with, and they understand that. And the fact that everyone came together and collaborated on it, and then the scene looks like, we planned it out and it was no problems, is the cool part.
And any dent you see in that van was me crashing it about 3 times on the set. I crashed into a pole, I crashed it into a wall.
He doesn't know how to drive a manual.
Like,
it's hard to see.
To drive.
It's hard to see.
Yeah, and then we had days where I think this is I'll actually put this out there. The scariest part was the very first day we shot. And imagine, first time directors, we've been writing this for months, rehearsing, casting, everything. We had daylight savings the week before kick into gear. So we had pretty much an hour later the sun came down and it was a night scene in a restaurant. So we had all these extras, about 30 people in the room, and we only had pretty much an hour and 45 before security were going to kick us out at 10 to actually shoot those dinner scenes with Luca. That was probably when we were like, wow, like this is a huge challenge, but I think we rose to it.
It was really incredible to see the proportions to which you guys made this film. It's not like you dipped your toes in the water. You guys dove right in. I'm hoping you can speak a little bit more to that of on a $3,000 budget, gathering 30 plus background actors and navigating that challenge.
I think that's a key thing. I was going to say, because I think when you're trying to do something what we were trying to do, which was a crime drama, mafia-esque type film, if it feels small, then the stakes feel small. And I think that a big part of that was actually making sure that we had sufficient extras, that we made the actual sets feel big and grand, and that it's plausible that this character, Victor, owns a drug empire. But it was a lot easier to coordinate just friends and family. So I'd say like 80% of the people in the background were just friends and family. And then there were a few people who we didn't unfortunately cast, but were like, hey, we did like your audition, we'd like to bring you back. Would you be willing to play someone working at the restaurant, one of the bodyguards? And they were game and we were like, absolutely, get down. But that just adds to like the depth of the scene.
Unfortunately, we have a really go big or go home kind of mindset, and it can get us into trouble, but it can also take us places we might not have tried to go in a way. And we're not saying this film is perfect by any measures, but I think something that we wanted to do at least was make it feel legitimate in some way. And also I will say that those 2 days were the only scenes where we had that many extras. And, with the cross-cutting, it maybe felt like there were more people in it. But that one big scene made the film seem so much bigger,
True.
which we're really happy with.
True, yeah.
I feel like you're selling yourself short in saying that one scene was making your film feel so big, because you have these really epic shots of the vineyard being lit on fire, right? And even like the car scene. Those shots are things that you don't expect to see in a first-time film. Tell me about that.
Well, I feel like we were very fortunate because we had Zach's apartment building for a big part of it. So we had a direct access. Not that they necessarily let us film there like off the rip, but, asking the right questions, seeing if we could use spaces for a period of time. That stuff we're dealing with on our new film that we're working on as well. And I think it's the most important thing is just like asking people permission to do something and being surprised at how many people will be willing to support you. So the actual set piece where that restaurant is not a restaurant. It's a common space that we ended up bringing tables from a cafe down the road and setting them ourselves. You could be the person to buy the tables, or you could be the person to be like, hey, we're going to use this for a couple hours. Is that all right with you guys? And if they're all good, then, that's just an extra $1 you save and you can use it on other things. So
I'm not going to lie, it was harder to get tablecloths than it was to get tables, which is really
yeah, true. It actually was
like
hard.
it was really hard to find like
the right one.
The right ones.
The right length.
But like the actual main like dining area, like that's like a common room in the apartment building. And pretty much the only thing there is the giant dinner table in the central where those guys are sitting. And we decorated that whole room from start to finish 2 nights in a row, which took
packing it up took ages as well. Like Zach was saying, when we got hit by, we only got like 2 hours to film. I'd say like prep took about 2 hours, and then packing up took like half an hour to an hour as well. So it took us longer to set up the set than it did to shoot on the days.
Your setup is one thing. The way that your film looks is one thing. And I feel like a big wall that I've run into before, and I feel like many people don't explore enough, is the audio portion of a film and how you make a world feel lived in. Tell me about building that side of the film.
We honestly didn't prep that hard for the sound, and that's something we, on this next film, will do more on. And it was a lot in post-production. So a lot of it was going through sound libraries. We did a little bit of Foley. I did a bit of ADR as well, because in the restaurant, like the audio was so echoey. And so we got most of that in ADR. In fact, pretty much all of it. But it was really just relentless editing. It took a long time to find the right songs, the right scores for each scene, because we didn't have an original score. So it was just about finding the right pick. A lot of it was just building out the sound design through little sound effects that would add that 1%. You can't understate how much those layers add to the film.
Being really picky with what you put in, like even footsteps, like we had a few things where we used like footsteps from other places. We didn't film ourselves. Some we did, like some we went through and did footsteps. Just holding the mic down to the ground, and like thinking about that while you're filming is really good, because sometimes you can find footsteps that just don't sound right in the clips. But I think, down to the little details of what feels right, what doesn't. But also like with music and everything like that, we went through hundreds and hundreds of songs and just couldn't find the right ones until we did. So I think being picky with that, but also being able to throw your bias out the window where you have a scene set for ages and you like the song, but then you find a better one, like being able to like adjust your expectations to actually change music is really big.
Zach, I noticed that you had a cameo in this production. Personally, as a filmmaker, I love throwing myself into some of the work that I've done. I just find it as a fun Easter egg type thing. What was that like to also, not only direct and spearhead this project, but also to be in it?
I think it's really cool. I mean, Brandt and I, we're discussing for the next film having, while, maybe they're at the movies, we're actually playing Corked in that film. So it's almost like a film within a film. We don't know if we'll do that or not, but I think we like the idea of just continuing like pushing forward like our past films because they're going to be such big stepping stones for us. I think it's really fun to just keep playing on that.
To be honest, I don't think it was very planned. The scene with me running at the start was just because we didn't have anyone else. So I was like, I'll do it,
Like you say with me.
And that was, I was getting separation anxiety because I was always the one holding the camera. And I was like, Zach, it's your turn to be on camera, running through the forest, like actually trying to act for a second and not think about the film. It's kind of fun, to be honest. You take yourself out of it.
That's one thing that people get trapped in is trying to set up a story and trying to build your way to this thing that's happening. But you guys started right in the happening. You're running away from someone who's coming after you. So, Brandt, I actually just, in doing my research, I stumbled across your Letterboxd, and I saw some of your top 4 films. And I mean, I couldn't say that any one of those jumped out at me as Corked. What is it that inspired you guys to write this way and to pursue this crime genre, but not in a super serious way too? I noticed that there's kind of a dramedy aspect to this. So I know this is I'm adding a lot to this one question, but to talk about that crime inspiration, but to not take it too seriously either.
It's a good question though, because I think that Zach and I, we're not really set on a genre. And like a lot of people have asked us like, oh, what is your how would you describe your directing style? Like what genre do you guys like to make? And I think that we're still discovering that, and I think that's okay. I think that we have an appreciation for lots of different films. I think we know the stuff that we like to have in our films. We always like to have a bit of comedy. So as much as this was like a drama and quite like a violent sort of thriller-esque film, there's always comedy in there. And we're going to carry that throughout all our films because I think that having that balance is always interesting for the audience. But I think it's also something that we like to do. I don't know if we had like any direct inspirations, but films like The Godfather, films like, Guy Ritchie's films, Goodfellas, like these are classic mafia movies. And we wanted to do our own sort of spin on it in a short where you sort of jump to the end of the story almost, and you're just plonked into a fall of an empire and you have to sort of figure out what's actually going on.
I like the idea of like a moment in time kind of film where you're placed in this story and you're trying to figure out where you are. Even as an audience, it's kind of confusing, and then you start to realize, oh, this is big, like the stakes are huge. And I also like the intellectual elements of, The Gentleman or The Godfather, where not everything has to be violent. There's not that much violence in here that's on screen, at least.
It's pretty much all off screen.
Yeah, most of it.
Maybe it was budget related. It could have been.
A little bit, maybe.
It's possible.
It's always budget related a little bit, but also it goes to show you don't have to put everything on screen for it to read. You can trust your audiences to fill in the blanks. I might be reading into this too much, but the vineyard to me played a very important symbolic role in this film. We have a character, Invictor, has overconsumed. You guys are both Greek. I was thinking of an extended metaphor for what we say Dionysus or Dionysus in Greek, but I don't know if that's something that you thought of, but the Greek god of alcohol, of wine, of overabundance, of taking too much and then losing so much in the process. Am I totally out in left field here, or was there something there?
I'd love to say.
Yeah, I would also love to say that was what we had in mind. But I think that that's a great connection. But you know what? I think the cool thing is that, honestly, having opinions like that makes us think about things as well. Because as much as we can be as intentional as we want, like we see things in this dimension, but other people can interpret it from a totally different angle. And I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. And that adds layers to the film. Like bringing your own set of lenses to the film is a cool thing for us, to be honest.
It's like a storyteller's dream to have like 10 different opinions on something. Brandt and I, we've been to 2 screenings so far before the one in California happening soon. And people laugh at so many different things that maybe we don't find funny in the film. Like there's one line where he says, better hangover.
Can you tell the difference between a cheap and a quality wine?
But hangover?
Depending on the audience, some people find that extremely hilarious and some people don't react. Whereas me and Brandt, like, it's probably not the funniest one to us, but it's really cool to just see people find joy in different elements of the film, which is fun.
Yeah, and that's one big thing that, especially with Way of the Road, that I want to foster is I don't think that there is a film opinion that's incorrect. Everyone takes something different away from a film, and if you can make the argument for why it exists, I think that you're correct. Sure, the filmmakers like you guys have the intention of what you're making placed in your film, and you have all these things that you're encoding through these filmic messages. But as soon as you put it out there, like you're mentioning, people laugh at things that you didn't intend, and that's not wrong of them to laugh at that. That's just opinion. And that's a beautiful thing, to take something and pass it on to someone else and allow them to make it their own. And then we get to have awesome conversations like this.
Just so you know, we're going to run with that from now on. That was our intention. Dionysus is definitely the creative direction we were taking.
And we both went to that the Temple of Dionysus as well, the theatre, I think. So
yeah, true.
So yeah, that's what inspired it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's our backstory. We're rewriting the story.
Yeah, there's lore there now. Obviously, you guys started off with a short film. You said you had much bigger things in mind when you first jumped into this project. I hear that there's rumblings of something bigger in the future, and I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about that.
So we finished the third draft of our next film, which is called The Ones Who Stay. It's more of a drama romance with shades of deeper meaning compared to CORKED, at least. And it follows a brilliant but insular physics student from start to the end of his life. He goes through just really difficult periods and finds himself along the way. And yeah, we're working with some really cool people at the moment. We've got an astrophysicist, Sarah Webb. She's working with us on the project, and we're weaving physics through the main character's emotions, and we're sort of weaving that in through his life, which is really cool. We're also doing an original score. I know we spoke about music a lot before. We've got a really talented composer called Lily Wyman. She's going to be working on that for us.
We can speak to the premiere in Santa Cruz. That'll be at the Rio Theatre on May 7th. 7 p.m. doors open.
That May 7th date, just so people are clear, is CORKED premiere.
Yeah. CORKED premiere, Santa Cruz. It's also a networking event. We're getting a bunch of filmmakers down there, actors, anyone who's in the community. So if you happen to be around the Bay Area, get down. We'd love to have you. Then we've got CORKED coming out on Apple TV in the next few weeks. We'll be working on the next film for the next 6 months or so, getting it ready to shoot in December, and then hopefully releasing in 2027.
Final message, anything that you could leave like a young aspiring filmmaker with to impart some wisdom?
I'd say anyone who wants to make something, just go out and make it. Whether it's good or bad, you'll learn something. You might surprise yourself. But yeah, I think that's something I'd say. Just go out and do it. Make it happen, and who knows what can happen as well.
Brandt, Zach, thank you guys so much for joining me, and thanks for being my Indie Filmmaker Spotlight of this week. I'm looking forward so much to what you guys have next.
Thanks, Cole.
Awesome. Thanks, Cole. Appreciate it.